Hello there, Romans here, and welcome to another music review. I review every album from a viewpoint of a musician, as I'm a singer, songwriter and a bass player for my own group Jakobe. And last year we released our debut album called Pursuit in Life, and what makes it unique is that it's a pretty heavy prog rock without guitars. Instead you have drums, bass, saxophone and keyboards. You can check out two of our singles on my YouTube channel. We're building our own monument and a studio live take of A Way to Oppose.
Must never give in to seductive voice. This is the easiest choice. You need to find a way to oppose and let her go, let her go.
And in the description of both videos you will find all the information about where is the record available. It's available on all digital platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon, Bandcamp, but also in this digipack version of a CD with a very beautifully illustrated 20 pages long booklet. So in case you want one, all you need to do is contact me via an email, Facebook, Instagram or through Bandcamp. And today I'm going to talk about the new album from Biffy Clyro called Balance, Not Symmetry.
Music review. Music review.
I'm a pretty big fan of Biffy Clyro. It was actually in 2014 when I discovered their music, and I have their last two albums, Opposites, Only Revolutions, the live disc, also the Ellipsis LP. And I think it was like 10 days ago or 11 days ago that they dropped a new single, Balance Not Symmetry. But maybe it was just me, but there wasn't really any information about any record coming out. It was just that it's a song for a soundtrack, and I thought that they recorded a song for some movie and that it was going to be one of the many songs there, but I didn't know that the whole soundtrack was going to be written by them. And the next day, so that was on May the 17th when the record came out, I was kind of like wondering, okay, it's gonna be 3 years since Ellipsis came out, so when are they gonna release a new album? And I checked the Spotify and there it was, the new album from Biffy Clyro. I was like, what? For me it kind of felt like they dropped the album out of nowhere. As of now I've heard this album 10 times, so let's dive right into the review. This album is actually a soundtrack for a movie with the same name, Balance Not Symmetry, but it doesn't really feel like a soundtrack. There are 3 short instrumentals that range anywhere from 1 minute and 40 seconds up to like 2.5 minutes, and the only thing that they have in common is that their titles represent different colors. For example, pink, navy, blue, yellow, and they are all similar in their nature. They are based on piano, they are mostly ambient-like instrumentals, and I can actually imagine these tracks being used as a background music in a movie. But the rest of the album feels like a regular studio album with quite a lot of songs. Even after the first listening of this album I just got under this impression that it's probably the most pop and accessible and the commercial record they've ever released. And I haven't heard Biffy Clyro sounding this pop like ever. There are only a handful of tracks where I would go for the label heavy. It's more like having a few riffs, maybe few heavier parts. For example, the first track, Balance Not Symmetry, it starts relatively heavy with Simon screaming, but essentially it transforms into more poppy song. It kind of has it all, like heavier and more commercial parts. It actually, with the whole songwriting, reminds me of the track Wolves of Winter from their previous album. It even has a guitar solo, and guitar solos are not a traditional offering from Biffy Clyro, and there are actually 3 songs on this album, or 2.5, because there's one solo that's more like an arrangement, but there are 2 songs that have very short guitar solo, and I think that Wolves of Winter had the guitar solo. I also remember the song Pocket from the Opposites, which had very simple but very effective guitar solo, but it's usually not something we get from this band. Another track is Sunrise, which starts with a very old school riff. The actual song falls under a more contemporary pop rock category, but it's still one of the heavier tracks. And also the Naturals. It actually starts acoustically, but essentially it transforms into what I would call an old school sounding Biffy Clyro. Still kinda in that pop rock style, but it's one of the heavier tracks. and I think that these are pretty decent tracks. One of the things I always loved about Biffy Clyro's records was that they really experimented a lot with their music. There was so much stuff going on, and there are two tracks that are pretty experimental, and I would say that even pretty unique within their whole catalog. The first one is Fever Dream. It has an electronic beginning, and this actually sounds like from a soundtrack. And this is also the longest track, with the running time being over 6 minutes. I like that the whole track is mostly ambient, very artistic, and then at around 5 minutes guitars enter in a very doom fashion, and they are accompanied by Simon's screams, adding to the overall drama of the song. And then it ends with gospel vocals singing Hallelujah. So in its sense, this is a pretty proggy track, and with this track you kind of realize that there is probably a story throughout the whole record. I went through the lyrics, even though I wasn't paying too much attention or spending too much time analyzing the story, because I'm more interested in the music. But this track really works for me, it's really great. The other one is Following Master, which starts almost as a blues song. I really love it. And then you have a very powerful chorus and very epic orchestral mid-section. Most of the album, however, falls onto a very strict pop rock category. For example, Different Kind of Love is a pop song based on acoustic guitar, very much in their own style, but there's a little bit of fun mixed in. The band Fun, they had the song Some Nights, it kind of reminds me of that. Also very nice backing vocals, and again we have a very short guitar solo.
So tell me, why does this feel wrong? It's a different kind of love we've been dreaming of.
Then for example, All Singing and All Dancing has U2-ish vibe, and this is a track that reminds me a lot of the song Friends and Enemies from their previous album Ellipsis, and very similar is the track Tunnels and Trees, with the only difference being that it has a heavier mid-section. And it seems like there are a few tracks written in a similar way. For example, Touch, it's pretty much in the same style. The track Plaid is slightly more in the indie pop territory, and that riff that the whole song is kind of based on reminds me of the band Falls.
Take my hand, let me demonstrate. The titles suck everything away.
And I also like that rhythm bass outro. The only track I didn't really like on the album was Yasabiab or Jesabib, or however that is pronounced. This is a song that is very happy sounding, almost too happy. It kind of sounds like it was written for children, so I probably wouldn't have put this track on the album. And then there are a few mellow tracks, like for example Gates of Heaven, which sounds just like every other track I was talking about, just in a much more mellow and more acoustic instrumentation. And then we have Color Wheel. This is actually a great song, very intimate pop song. I really love the atmosphere, and also I love how it builds up from that subtle electronics to that one big moment where we have this almost like a sonic peak. I also love the backing vocals here.
We survive without anyone to hold. So don't be blinded by a colorful love. When you're drowning in a monochrome flood, you don't have to be alone.
And the album is closed by the track Adored, a piano-based ballad, also very nice track. To sum up, my feelings are somewhere between positive to very mixed. My perception of the record was changing as I was getting familiar with it. When I listened to the record for the first time, I was very excited because, you know, wow, a new album from Biffy Clyro. But I felt that I still need to get more familiar with the record because it's pretty long and there are many tracks. Then after like 5 listenings I started remembering certain things, and I actually started liking the record a lot. But when I was getting towards like the 8th listen of the album started getting a little overwhelming, you know. Too many songs are just way too similar to each other, which will result in you being not really able to differentiate them. Also, the overall length of the album, it's just too long. It's 65 minutes long. And as I've mentioned already, one of the things I always loved about Biffy Clyro was just how much stuff was going on their albums. But there is some stuff going on here, but it's not enough considering it's 65 minutes. And the album is called Balance, not Symmetry, but I actually think that this album desperately lacks the balance. Because I'm not saying that the tracks are necessarily bad, I just, from a songwriting point of view, I would just balance this record a little more. I would probably pick some of those pop rock tracks and put them away for future releases and experiment a little more, maybe even make the record shorter. It certainly is missing something. Now, I think that hearing it for 10 times is quite a lot. I will probably get back to this record later and see how it stands the test of time, but as of now I'm like, it's okay, but I kind of feel like it may be the weakest album they have released up until this point. Have you heard the new album? You can let me know in the comment section below what do you think about this record, whether you agreed or disagreed with me. Also, you can let me know how well do you think it compares to their previous stuff. If you like this review, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. You can check out my own music, my live performances, my worst to best series, and quite a lot of other reviews as well. Thanks a lot for watching.